Hey guys, welcome back to Dogforge, and in this, the first of the subclass Tierlist series. Today we'll be taking a look at the Artificer subclasses, taking a bit of an overview of their features, and ranking them to see how good they are, what they are meant to do, and how effective they are in the game in general. So let's dive on into it. Of course, the Artificer, originally being published in Eberron's Rising from the Last War and then republished in Tasha's, we haven't really got that many subclasses for it so far. So just to go over these here, this is just an Artificer picture, because you need 5 pictures to actually create a tier list. This is the Alchemist, then we have the Armourer, Artillerist, and Battlesmith. So first up, the much maligned Alchemist, or at least that's how it feels. Now, I think that maybe this is just the circles that I swim in. It most likely is, but the Alchemist is often portrayed as the weakest of the Artificers and generally just not very good, not really worth playing. I don't agree with that sentiment. And whilst it may potentially be the weakest in overall scope, I think that more just says something about the robustness of the other subclasses than the Alchemist itself. And in its own role, well, we'll see. So, going through now, every subclass is going to give us some tools, some spells onto their spell list, similar to oath spells or domain spells. And then we're going to get actual features, and the Artificer gets its subclass at 3rd level. Now, the Alchemist is going to give us proficiency with Alchemist supplies. And then, in terms of spells, at 3rd level, it's going to give us Healing Word, Ray of Sickness, 5th level, Flaming Sphere, and Melf's Acid Arrow, 9th level, Gaseous Form and Mass Healing Word, 13th level, Blight and Death Ward, and 17th level, Cloud Kill and Raise Dead. Their premier 3rd level feature is Experimental Elixir, and once per long rest, once when you finish a long rest, you magically produce one of these elixirs in an empty flask that you touch. When you create a flask this way, you roll on the table to see what you get, and then a creature can drink it, activating the effect as an action, or use an action to administrate it to an incapacitated creature. Note that that creature has to be incapacitated. You can't just feed your friends potions or have minions feed you them. You can create additional elixirs by using a spell slot of 1st level or higher, and when you create an elixir this way, you get to choose the effect rather than rolling randomly. In order to make these elixirs, you need to have alchemist supplies on your person, which with the Artificer kit is not very difficult at all. And any elixir you create this way, it lasts until you drink it or until the end of your next long rest. This does scale a little bit. When you hit 6th level, you can make 2 at the end of a long rest, and at 15th level, you can make 3. You roll for each of those elixirs separately. In terms of what you get, it's a d6 table. There is healing, which does 2d4 plus your intelligence modifier healing. Swiftness, which increases the drinker's walking speed for 10 feet by an hour. By 10 feet for 1 hour. Resilience, which gives the drinker a +1 AC for 10 minutes. Boldness, which gives them a d4 to every attack roll and saving throw for the next minute. Flight, which gives them a flying speed of 10 feet for 10 minutes, and Transformation, which lets them basically change themselves as if the Alter Self spell was cast. They can determine what transformation is caused by it, and the effects last for 10 minutes. The important part of that last one is that it says, as if by the Alter Self spell, you are not actually using the spell. In terms of effectiveness here, the healing is effectively a better version of a stock healing potion. The normal healing potion in the equipment table is 2d4 plus 2. This is 2d4 plus intelligence, so we should really be starting at 2d4 plus 3 and then going up 2 plus 5. Swiftness is basically a potion version of Longstrider. Resilience, it's kind of similar, but a weaker effect of Shield of Faith. Boldness, kind of a single person bless effect. The flying speed only being 10 feet means you're not zooming around, but it lasts 10 minutes, and this means that you can practically get over most environmental hazards unless you have a particularly long chasm or something like that. and 10 feet is more than adequate to get some verticality in a fight. You're not going to be, again, whizzing around the battlefield, but you can get off the ground and potentially away from some melee combatants. Transformation could be good if you were looking for kind of like a polyjuice style, infiltration kind of deal. Or otherwise you wanted the adaptiveness to maybe breathe underwater, that kind of thing. The effects of the experimental elixirs themselves actually are pretty good. I think the only flaw in terms of this is, first of all, there's only 6, and at first when you play this, 6 is more than enough. But the more you play it, the more you kind of want more options to play with, so I kind of would have liked to have seen a D8 table, and I would have liked to have seen perhaps potentially some scaling in the options themselves outside of the healing's intelligence modifier. However, the design is to scale in terms of the number of times you use them instead, which is also a fair approach. The 5th level ability is Alchemical Savant, which is going to let them add their intelligence modifier to any spells they cast through alchemist supplies that restores hit points or does damage that is of the type acid, fire, necrotic, or poison. So this is whereas others, the battlesmith and the armorer get extra attack, the artillerist gets the arcane firearm. This is their, general bump for tier 3. Now, everything an artificer casts has a material component because of their tools required feature, and being able to cast through alchemist supplies. Now, the only downside here is that it means that you can't use an infused item, so you couldn't, say, cast through a shield, whereas other artificers could use that with their spells, because you'd be foregoing this. However, I'm just going to have to point out, and we did a video somewhat recently on how this affects healing. Being able to add your modifier on top of healing spells is actually pretty significant. And artificers in general get cure wounds. This artificer gets healing word and mass healing word. Being able to do a d4 or a d8 plus intelligence times 2 is pretty significant. And being able to add your intelligence onto that damage as well means that this artificer is definitely a healer. They're going to be a pretty good healer. They're going to be pumping out more hit points than some full caster options actually, whilst also being able to do respectful damage, because they are able to do something like, I'm just grabbing Acid Splash off the top of my head, okay? They could do Acid Splash because theme, throwing acid, get their additional damage with the intelligence modifier, but then they can use their bonus action to also cast a bolstered healing word. So the fact that you can synergistically use the action economy to heal and do damage and get that intelligence modifier out there so much, I rate that ability pretty highly actually. It's more constrained by the spells they get access to. 9th level, they get Restorative Reagents. Whenever a creature drinks an experimental elixir you created, they gain temp HP equal to 2d6 plus your intelligence modifier, minimum of 1. And you can cast Lesser Restoration without expending a spell slot and without preparing the spell, provided you use alchemist supplies as the spellcasting focus. You can do this a number of times per intelligence modifier per long rest. So this is actually pretty good. So no matter what you're doing, and at this level you're making 2 elixirs per long rest for free anyway, plus whatever you want to use spell slots for. 2d6 plus intelligence. At this level, 9th level, if we're just boosting intelligence, it should be a +5. 2d6 averages out to 7, so on average 12 temp HP plus the actual effect of the elixir. That's pretty significant and really increases the value of the elixirs fairly significantly. For example, the healing potion one, it takes an action, and that can feel kind of risky if you need to do it in combat. 2d4 plus 5, not a great deal, but if you're healing 2d4 plus 5 and then getting 2d6 plus 5 temp HP, then that means that it's actually a really viable use of your turn. And it can take somebody that was down at 0 and put them to a place where they might actually be able to withstand a hit without any additional healing on top of that. Lesser Restoration has its uses. Being able to cast it for free, particularly on a half caster, and not needing to prepare it on a prepared caster is good. This is a very good feature. I like it. 15th level, they're going to get Chemical Mastery as their final feature. So you get resistance to acid and poison damage and immune to the poisoned condition. Acid damage, not super common, really. I mean, if you're fighting oozes or spellcasters with certain lists, it's not, or you get swallowed, I guess, but it's not going to come up that much. Resistance to poison and immunity to the poison condition is pretty significant, again, depending what you're fighting, but that's a pretty significant thing. And then you can cast Greater Restoration and Heal without expending a spell slot or preparing the spells, and without material components, as long as you use alchemy supplies, and you can cast either spell once per long rest. So their 15th level feature, big defensive bump, but then, you know, Greater Restoration it's nice, but it's niche. Heal is a whole bunch of hit points. So the healing elixir plus the temp HP, their healing spells plus the intelligence thing, and there's no reason this should not stack with the 5th level feature, I believe. So you can add your intelligence onto that heal spell as well. So I don't fully understand all of the bad rep that alchemists get. I do sometimes feel a little bit, you know, what could have been with the UA, where we got all the discrete options like the Tanglefoot bag, but ultimately it's a solid subclass, and I think it's more so just that it's being compared against some really strong options. It's a great healing option that will scale pretty well throughout progression, and I think this may be one of the more controversial ones, but I think Alchemist is an A, as long as you bear in mind that it is a healing support character and you lean into that. Now, next up, we have the Armorer as a scroll in D&D Beyond. Now, in terms of tools, that's going to give us Smith's tools. Their spells, they're going to get at 3rd Magic Missile and Thunderwave. Magic Missile is pretty nice, and this is the only way to get it as an Artificer spell. 5th level, Mirror Image and Shatter. 9th level, Hypnotic Pattern, another good spell, and Lightning Bolt, big damage. 13th level, Fire Shield and a Greater Invisibility. And 17th level, Pass Wall and Wall of Force. This is, I think, a very evocative spell list. You have a lot of things that you can easily picture as, if you were just going to the obvious Iron Man comparison, as, you know, different weapon modules in the armor, or as defensive features that are engaged. So I think it's a very solid spell list. Now, in terms of the main arcane armor feature, as an action, you can turn a suit of armor you are wearing into arcane armor as long as you have Smith's tools in hand, and you gain the following benefits while you wear that armor. If the armor normally has a strength requirement, the armor lacks this requirement for you, so you can wear heavy armor without the strength, and you don't get that speed penalty that you would normally suffer unless you were a dwarf. You can use the armor itself as a spellcasting focus, rather than needing tools or an infused item. The armor attaches to you and can't be removed against your will. It also covers your entire body, although you can retract or deploy the helmet as a bonus action. It also replaces any missing limbs, functioning identically to a limb it replaces, and you can doff or don the armor as an action. The last one being very Iron Man suitcase armor from my childhood cartoons. So this, I think, is a very solid set of features here, and there's more coming, but this particular is kind of like the core of the armor. So being able to dump strength but go into heavy armor, that's great. Being able to use it as a spellcasting focus, it means you don't have to infuse the armor if you don't want to. Most people will, though. seeing that your entire subclass is built around wearing this armor, it not being able to be removed from you is great, and the fact that it explicitly can cover your face and they can't uncover your face has great superhero vibes to it, like nobody knows your identity if you get captured. The limb thing, it's not really going to come up, but it's great at enabling people who want to play characters that maybe are born lacking some limbs or have lost some limbs in some kind of conflict or accident, and that's great accessibility. Now, the armor does have 2 models, which you get from the armor model feature, and each one is going to have a special weapon, and whatever weapon it gives you, you can use your intelligence instead of strength or dexterity, which you would normally have to use. You change the armor model you're in anytime you finish a short or long rest, and you do need smith's tools in hand to change the model. The first one up is Guardian. The weapon is Thunder Gauntlets. The gauntlets count as a simple melee weapon while you aren't holding anything in it. It deals 1d8 thunder damage on a hit. A creature hit by the gauntlets has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you until the start of your next turn. So this is a d8. It's not a lot, but it is giving you kind of that tanky aggro drawing ability. It also gives you defensive field, and as bonus action you gain temporary hit points equal to your level in this class, replacing any temp HP you already have. You lose these temp HP if you doff the armor, and you can use this bonus action proficiency times per long rest. Temporary hit points equal to level means that you're going to start off with 3, top out at 20. It's a very slow, smooth progression, but it's ultimately not a lot of temp HP. And some people might look at this, well, over the course of a long rest, looking at temporary hit points over the course of a long rest, I'm sorry, stupid. The value of temp HP is directly correlated to how much it stops you dying in a fight. That is the primary benefit of temp HP. If you're getting like tiny piddly amounts at a time, then yeah, it might save you over the course of an adventure, so many hit die or drinking a potion between combats, but it's not really moving the needle in terms of your in-combat durability that much. I would have much rather have liked to have seen a dice thrown in here, maybe like a d6 plus your level, kind of similar to how second wind scales as a fighter, they get a d10 in their fighter level. I would have liked to have seen, maybe like a d6 plus their level. The other version is going to be Infiltrator. Their weapon is the Lightning Launcher, and that's a gem-like node that's on one of your armored fists or your chest, unibeam style. You get to choose which one it is. Notably, if you choose the chest one, obviously you don't need your hands. It counts as a simple ranged weapon with a normal range of 90 feet and a long range of 300. It deals a d6 lightning damage on a hit. Once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with it, you can deal an extra d6 lightning damage to the target. So straight away, d6, we're in short bow territory for the damage. We've got a pretty good range, but the fact that you can kind of do this almost like sneak attack additional damage is very nice. This is a very roguish kind of part of the subclass. Now, I will touch on, just go back to the Thunder Gauntlets. The Thunder Gauntlets, simple weapons, you've got 2 of them. If you were to take, say, the dual wielder feat, then theoretically you could be, using 2 weapon fighting with those and getting the +1 to your AC. With the Lightning Launcher, this is obviously going to be available for Sharpshooter, and if you wanted to do a rogue sneak attack multi-class benefit. So that's pretty nice. Lightning damage is generally pretty nice. However, I'm going to say that if you like using the Infiltrator and you're kind of sticking to that primarily, that you can run into some nasty surprises. I'm haunted by fighting a shambling mound using lightning because it was my favorite ability and healing the thing when we were well into combat, and you don't want to be in that position. So pretty much no matter which armor you get stuck on, always make sure you carry a backup weapon to give you a different damage type. This is also going to give you a plus 5 feet with the powered steps feature, and it can give you advantage on dexterity stealth checks. If it normally imposes disadvantage on such checks, the advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out as normal. So if you were to wear, say, a breastplate which does not give disadvantage, you would get advantage. Or you could wear, say, full plate and just have straight rolls. Or if you were to get mithril armor, you could have, say, full plate mithril that does not give disadvantage on its own, and then you would still get advantage. This is a great kind of rogue pack, and the fact that you're, as an artificer, going to get expertise in thieves' tools, I'm a big fan of this. I personally lean more towards infiltrator, but I think the tanking of guardian is decent. At 5th level, you're going to get extra attack, pretty standard. 9th level, armor modifications is the feature. The armor now counts as separate items for the purposes of your infused item feature. So you have the chest piece, boots, helmet, and the special weapon. Each of those can bear an infusion, and the infusions transfer over if you change your armor's model with the armor model feature. So for example, if you're a guardian and you're using an enhanced weapon, when you then go to infiltrator, the lightning launcher would then still have the +1 or +2. In addition, the maximum number of items you can infuse at once increases by 2, but those extra items must be part of your arcane armor. So this is tricky, right? Because there's no power in this. There is no hard thing we can look at this and say this is X powerful, because it's entirely dependent on the infusions you choose. However, it does have a lot of potential, and it does have the potential, unlike some of the other subclasses, to scale should we get a publication in the future that gives us more infusions. I don't think that's particularly likely at this point, but that is something worth bearing in mind. So this feature is what you make of it, but I've played a lot of Artificers, they're one of my favourite classes, and you're always hurting for infusions, so this is a really good feature. 15th level, their final ability is Perfected Armour, and that's going to be a different ability based on which version you're in, which model. The Guardian is going to get when a huge or smaller creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to magically force it to make a strength saving throw against your spell to save DC. On a failed save, you pull the creature up to 25 feet directly to an unoccupied space. If you pull the target to a space within 5 feet of you, you can make a melee weapon attack against it as part of the action. You can do this proficiency times per long rest. So, good, bad here. It's huge or smaller, so we're not affecting gargantuan, and at this level this means that some boss fights might be entirely irrelevant, but huge and lower covers the vast, overwhelming majority of the monsters in the game. The fact that it's a little murky, and it will be a little bit up to DM interpretation because it is specifically saying pulling, but it does just say directly to an occupied space. It does not say that space has to be by you, so you could just move them around the battlefield. But the fact that you can get a reaction attack out of this is pretty nice. If you're using your Thunder Gauntlet, it's not going to be that impactful, but you will, obviously get the disadvantage on attacks against them. The real downside to this is, besides them not affecting gargantuan creatures, is that it's a strength saving throw, which is stereotypically a strong monster save, just through virtue of, one, their modifier, but this specifically calls out that it's magical, so this will run into magic resistance as well. Now, the Infiltrator is going to get an ability that means any creature that takes lightning damage from the lightning launcher will glimmer with magical light until the start of your next turn. That creature will then shed dim light in a 5-foot radius and has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. In addition, the next attack roll against it has advantage, and if that attack hits, it takes an extra d6 lightning damage. So, the shedding light thing is kind of redundant. I think it's just there mostly for flavor. Disadvantage on attack rolls against you specifically, that's good, mostly. additional damage on the next hit. You have extra attack, so you can take advantage of this. So this is generally a good ability. I will say that if you really want to make the most out of this, then you're going to have to try and be a little bit more aggro drawing. Obviously the lightning launcher is a ranged weapon, it has a pretty good range on it, so you might not be getting attacked by them to begin with. So that's just something to bear in mind. So that is the Armourer. What do we think overall? I think it's great. I think it does serve the Iron Man fantasy, but keeping it bounded within 5e and general fantasy tropes well enough. I like that you have the option of being kind of a broody tank or this kind of stealthy infiltrator version, and I like that you can switch between them, not freely, because there should be some decision and investment here, but being able to switch on a short or long rest is nice. I don't think that this is quite S tier. I do think that it is a very strong subclass, and I think it has very good spells to back it up. And of course, there are no features that require spell slots, which means you get all of that armor goodness, plus all of your infusion goodness, which you get extra infusions of, and then you have all of your spell slots to just cast your spells with. So, ooh, am I talking myself into an S? I don't think the Guardian is good enough to be an S. I think the damage is A, and if it's going to be in an aggro door in tank role, the temp HP isn't quite good enough. If the Guardian was just a little bit better, this might creep into S tier, but at the moment it is a high A. Next we have the Artillerist. Tool-wise, they're going to have Woodcarver's tools. Spells, at 3rd level they get Shield and Thunderwave. 5th level, Scorching Ray and Shatter. 9th level, Fireball and Windwall. 13th level, Ice Storm, Wall of Fire. 17th level, Cone of Cold and Wall of Force. It's a very strong list. Shield is obviously a great spell to have access to. Thunderwave, decent damage for early levels. The push is really nice. Scorching Ray, also nice. You know, it's a Fireball, great spell. Wall of Force, ultimately. These are a lot of good spells. It's a very solid list. Now, their main thing is their Eldritch Cannon. So you use your Woodcarver's tools to create a small or tiny cannon. It appears in a space on a horizontal surface within 5 feet of you. A small Eldritch Cannon occupies its space. A tiny one can be held in hand like a gun. So for this you should, it says Eldritch Cannon. It's only really a cannon per se if you make it tiny. Otherwise it's basically a turret. So if you think kind of like Borderlands Roland or Axel, that kind of thing, I'm sure there's plenty more video game and maybe even pop culture references to make for that. Once you create a cannon, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, or you expend a spell slot to create one, and you can only have one cannon at a time for the time being, and can create one while one is already present. It's a magical object, not a creature. Regardless of size, the cannon has an AC of 18 and a number of hit points equal to 5 times your Artificer level, and it is immune to poison damage and psychic damage. If it's forced to make a saving throw, treat all of its ability scores as 10, so a +0 modifier, and if you cast Mending on it, it regains 2d6 hit points. It disappears if it's reduced to 0 hit points, or after 1 hour, you can dismiss it early as an action. So, this only lasts for an hour, and if you want to do it again, it's going to cost spell slots, so it's not something that early time, tier 1, you're not going to be using this a whole bunch, unless you don't have many combats or your combats are like crammed together, or you dedicate all of your spellcasting into the turret early on. Just bear in mind that at this point, when you first get this ability, it's not the whole thing. You can also determine whether or not the cannon has legs and what its general appearance is. You also decide what type it is. The different types I'll go through in a second. It takes a bonus action to activate the cannon. You have to be within 60 feet of the cannon to activate it. And as part of the same bonus action, you can direct it, if it has legs, to walk or climb up to 15 feet to an unoccupied space. Now there are 3 types of cannons. We have a flamethrower that's going to do a 15-foot cone dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, taking 2d8 fire damage or half on a save. This also ignites any flammable objects in the area that aren't worn or carried. The Force Blister, which is a ranged spell attack from the cannon against a single creature or object within 120 feet. On a hit, it takes 2d8 force damage, and the creature is pushed up to 5 feet away from the cannon, provided it's a creature, not an object. And finally, and probably the most infamous, is the Protected Cannon. The cannon creates a burst of positive energy, granting itself and each creature of your choice within 10 feet temp HP equal to a d8 plus your intelligence modifier. Now, you can do this every turn. The temp HP does not expire, it doesn't have a limit, so it'll go until your long rest. So if you choose the Protector, then that means that even once the turret's gone, you can still carry those temp HP into another fight without the turret. And a d8 plus intelligence, assuming that you're actually bumping your intelligence as you should be, that's a lot of hit points that can, depending what you're fighting and how well they're hitting, if they're focus firing or not, the turret and how your party's positioned can potentially wipe out the damage done, or pretty close to it, done by the enemy. This is particularly the case early on with stuff like goblins and kobolds. Now that's very powerful, but that does leave all of the damage to you and the party. At 5th level, you get Arcane Firearm, which lets you turn a wand, staff, or rod into an arcane firearm, quote unquote. You do this when you finish a long rest using woodcarver's tools. And if you carve these sigils that make it an arcane firearm into something else, they disappear from the first one, so you can't have backups, you just make it again. When you use your arcane firearm as a spellcasting focus for your Artificer spells, you can add a d8 to the damage roll of a spell. So this is going to be your damage bump in lieu of extra attack. It's going to apply to your damage cantrips and your damage spells. It does nothing for your turret's damage. But a d8, not bad. And if you're casting a leveled spell, then it's pretty much like upcasting it for free. So it's not great, not bad. And arcane firearm, it says wand, staff, or rod. I mean, the official art for it makes it look like a crystal flintlock, so just whatever you want. You want to make it a caster, make it a caster. 9th level, you get Explosive Cannon. The cannon's damage rolls all increase by a d8, so 3d8. And as an action, you can command the cannon to detonate if you're within 60 feet of it, destroying the cannon and forcing each creature within 20 feet to make a dex save against your spell save DC, taking 3d8 force damage on a fail or half as much on a success. That is very lackluster and is kind of a last resort, I would say, or if you have a particularly target-rich environment, you might want to do that. You would be able to hit more than if you were using the flamethrower's cone. The damage rolls increasing by a d8 is nice. There's no temp HP increase, and it does not need a temp HP increase because d8 plus up to 5 is enough on its own. It's a decent feature. I wouldn't use Explosive Cannon frequently personally. I don't really see it being worthwhile except in very niche cases. Fortified Position. This is actually a very good feature. You and your allies have half cover, so +2 to AC and dex saves, when you're within 10 feet of the cannon. So you kind of have like a shield coming out of the cannon that gives you this half cover. And you can now have 2 cannons at once, which is the big factor here, because not only can you now, and they can be different types of turrets, but you direct them with the same single bonus action. So you can now double like the amount of damage you're doing effectively, and you can also spread them out so that your party doesn't actually have to be very close together, but you can still benefit from that half cover effectively. That's excellent. Now that 2 turret limit is hard. You can't create a third. You can have the same kind of turret, or you can have different ones. That's up to you. So you could have a protector and a ballista. You could have 2 ballistas, 2 flamethrowers, whatever you'd like. If you create 2 and you're using a spell slot, then it will take you 1 action, but you need to spend 2 spell slots, not just 1. I'm not keen on that part. I kind of feel like there should have been a scaling consideration here. Like you need to spend 2 first level slots, or you can spend a single second level or higher spell slot and get the 2. I think that would be more appropriate. Overall, the Artillerist has a lot of blasting potential, some support potential, which is nice that it's not just pigeonholed into the blaster soul category. Arcane firearms, not bad. You'll certainly be doing very respectable damage. Exploding turrets, kind of meh. Just through the sheer power of some of the turret options and the kind of damage or temp HP this can churn out, in light of some of the features being kind of okay or on the lackluster side, and with such a solid spell list and access to shield, I'm going to say that this also belongs in A. You're seeing a trend here. Now, the hardest thing for an artillerist is going to be spell slot management, which is one of the big things that's going to hold it back from being S tier. And that's partially because the Artificer as a whole has quite a nice spell list, but also the Artillerist has a nice spell list. And if you get access to shield now, so you have shield and absorb elements as good defensive options, but now you also have to weigh up the cost of spending spell slots to also get your turret after that first use. So there's just too much holding it back from being an S, and I think it balances out kind of somewhere in like the low to mid A. Definitely much better than a B though. And finally we have this boy. Now, entire disclosure here, Battlesmith is probably my favorite Artificer. I like them all, but Battlesmith is definitely my favorite, so that may color my perceptions. I have disclosed. Tool-wise, they're going to get Smith's Tools. Spell-wise, at 3rd level, they're going to get Heroism and Shield. 5th level, they get Branding Smite and Warding Bond. 9th level, they get Aura of Vitality and Conjure Barrage. 13th level, Aura of Purity and Fire Shield. And 17th level, Banishing Smite and Mask Cure Wounds. And this is kind of laying the foundation for what you should expect from Battlesmith. They are kind of a smash-up of a Beastmaster Ranger and a Paladin in a techno-punk form factor. You're going to get a companion, which we'll go through in a second. You're going to get the ability to hang in combat, but you're also going to get, smite spells if you want them. You're going to get some healing. Aura Vitality is a good spell that is outside of Tasha's, adding some onto optional spell lists. It is a Paladin exclusive. So, a solid spell list overall. They also get Battle Ready, which gives them proficiency with martial weapons, and when they attack with a magic weapon specifically, so you're going to have to use a found magic weapon or use an infusion. You can use your intelligence instead of strength or dex for the attack and damage rolls, meaning that besides investing some dex for your AC, you're pretty much sad, which all of the Artificers are really. And the Steel Defender itself, which we'll go through after this water break, brought to you by Tap Water. Refreshing. So, the Steel Defender is, it's a companion you get. We'll go through its stat block shortly. Its appearance is entirely up to you. You can decide if it has 2 or 4 legs. Your choice has no effect on its statistics, it's just its appearance. In combat, it shares your initiative. It acts immediately after your turn. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but unless you take a bonus action to direct it, it only takes the dodge action. The action can be an action in its stat block, or another action such as dash, dodge, disengage. If you're incapacitated, then the defender can act on its own, taking any action. So it can act autonomously to defend you, should you be incapacitated. If you cast the mending spell on it, then it regains 2d6 hit points. If it has died within the last hour, you can use Smith's Tools, an action, and a spell slot of 1st level or higher to revive it. This takes a minute, and it comes back with all of its hit points restored. At the end of a long rest, you can create a new Steel Defender if you have your tools with you. If you already have a Defender from this feature, the first one immediately perishes. The Defender also perishes if you die. So the Steel Defender is a medium construct, AC 15, hit points at 2 plus your intelligence modifier and 5 times your Artificer level. Has a speed of 40, a strength of +2, dex of +1, con of +2, and this will be a lot easier. Hang on. Here we go. Wisdom and Charisma, 0 and 6 respectively. Saving throws, dex +1, plus proficiency bonus, con +2 plus proficiency bonus. And then we get, some skills: immunity to poison, immunity to charms, exhausted and poisoned, 60 feet of dark vision, has vigilant so it cannot be surprised. Its actions are force empowered rend, that's a melee weapon attack, your spell attack modifier to hit, range of 5 feet, 1 target, a d8 plus proficiency bonus. So the damage there is kind of lackluster, but it will scale. And repair, the magical mechanism side of the defender, restore 2d8 plus proficiency bonus to itself or to one construct or object within 5 feet. That's quite nifty. That means that you could also repair something like an alchemical servant infusion or a tiny servant if you want. And as a reaction, it has deflect attack, meaning that when a creature is attacked within 5 feet of it that it can see, it can impose disadvantage as a reaction. So that is the Steel Defender, and it's very solid on its own. There is built-in scaling with the intelligence modifier, with the proficiency bonuses, so it is going to level up with you and stay relevant. 5th level, you get extra attack. Now, notably, that is not limited to magic weapons, so even if you are deprived of your magic weapons, you do still have the extra attack feature. 9th level, you get Arcane Jolt, which I am quite fond of. When either you hit a target with a magic weapon or your Steel Defender hits a target, you can do one of the following. Either it takes an extra 2d6 force damage, or one creature or object you can see within 30 feet of the target regains 2d6 hit points. And you can do this a number of times equal to your int modifier per long rest. So this is effectively a mixture of healing and smiting. Intelligence, 9th level, so you should really have 5 uses of it since your intelligence is sad anyway and you want flash of genius. So this is an excellent feature. 2d6, force damage is a good type. I think it's only 2d6 just so it doesn't step on the Paladin's 2d8 smiting ability. Being able to heal any creature, including constructs, so you can heal your Steel Defender or other minions, or pick somebody up. 2d6 is going to be a little bit swingy. I would have preferred to have seen an intelligence modifier on there, but the action economy of this, which is 0, you just do it when you hit something or your Steel Defender hits, is great, frankly. It really adds to the character, and I think it's a pretty good ability. And just to highlight, you could, if things are going really badly for your party and you don't have a realistic chance of killing the enemy in your turn, you could spend your action to cure wounds or something like that, and then as a bonus action your Steel Defender attacks. If it hits, it can then throw out more healing to the party and potentially turn the tide while still attacking. A lot of potential, fun ability, I like it. And finally, at 15th level, there's going to be the Improved Defender feat, which affects both Arcane Jolt and Steel Defender. The Arcane Jolt damage and healing both increase to 4d6, which is very significant. 2d6 is an average of 7, 4d6 is an average of 14. The Steel Defender gets another +2 to its AC, and whenever the Steel Defender uses its Deflect attack reaction, the attacker also takes force damage equal to a d4 plus your intelligence modifier. Now, a d4 could always be a bigger die, could always have been a d6, for example, but each die size increase is only an average of 1, and at the end of the day, Deflect attack is a good reaction to be using to begin with. Tagging on some force damage is just gravy. This is a great feature, and throughout all of this, there are no points where you look at the Battlesmith and you really see heavy compromises. So, the Alchemist isn't choosing their free elixirs, and the elixirs take an action. There's some compromise there. The Armorer is generally pretty solid, actually. Doesn't make a lot of compromises, but some of the features could be a bit stronger. The Artillerist, it only lasts an hour for their cannon, takes an action to summon, so do they summon it early? Do they spend more spell slots on it? Are those spell slots they could use on shield? We don't really have a lot of that with the Battlesmith. Whilst you can use spell slots to bring your Steel Defender back to life, you can also use Mending to heal it out of combat, and in combat it can heal itself with the repair action, so it's actually pretty durable, and then it's a creature, so on short rests it can spend short hit dice and heal normally. And I'm pretty sure that you could use the Healer feat, because the Healer feat does not, from the top of my head, exclude constructs like some of the healing spells that Cure Wounds does. You're not really spending spell slots on bringing it back unless it's going really badly, in which case the Steel Defenders probably save the party a decent amount of damage. You're getting, healing and damage and kind of like defensive stuff for the party in kind of equal measure. There's no real compromises. The closest thing to a compromise is you need to use a magical weapon, and you create your own magic items to begin with, so that's not an issue. So, based off of the strength of its features, the power of having a full-fledged durable minion in the action economy, lack of compromises it has to make, lack of needing to spend spell slots on like an average day for stuff that isn't casting spells, I am going to put the Battlesmith in S. All of these subclasses are good. The Alchemist is a good healer and support character. That they all have value. This is just what I think, and the Battlesmith is my favorite. There might be favoritism in that rating, but if you disagree, you know what you can do. Very simple, very free. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, where you'd rate them. Did I get anything wrong about like the features? Should I have rated something differently? Let me know down below. Whilst you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe button. It really does help the channel, and if you got this far, you'd probably like to stick around and support us. But I've been Paul, and until next time, I'll see you at the Forge.